change your behavior to keep revenue going as a sales leader? I mean, there's several things, I guess. An economic crisis is one of the hardest times to be a sales leader. The whole company depends on the revenue that your team is producing to survive. So sales leaders need to really step up and be great in times of crisis. So what do they have to change? I think, more than ever in a time of crisis, leaders need to confront reality and be action oriented. They need to be honest in their assessments of the challenges facing the organization. They need to embrace bad news. They need to ask hard questions. And they have to maintain a positive outlook and build an action plan. And in transparency, I think they have to be transparent with their team about what that plan is, what that action plan is. Sales managers need to be more responsive in these times. They need to be more supportive. The team is scared. They're worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about how hard it'll be to get another job with unemployment where it's at. They're worried about their commission check evaporating. And, remember, sales reps aren't paying their mortgage with their base salary, right? And so when depending on how the economy is affecting sales, it's affecting their ability to make ends meet as well. Mm-hmm. I guess, what actions does this translate into? You have to guide your team. You need to coach your team. I think a rule of thumb is in a difficult time or any kind of transition, you want to be spending about half your time as a sales manager coaching your reps. If you're not spending about half your time coaching them to make them better, you want to spend more. It's what you don't want to do is go silent. You don't want to, hide in your home office and this is really easy to do in a remote world. It's easy to go silent and just kind of start managing by spreadsheet. You have to ask your reps questions, find out what they need to be successful, learn who on the team is having success right now, with what type of customer profile and what sales playbook they're using. And then find out which from that rep that cracked the code and is being successful, find out what they did, all those things, and then look to empower that rep to explain to the rest of the team how and work with them to do that, to explain how they were successful, where they found success, so that the rest of the team can replicate those behaviors. You really have to understand what's going on the ground level, as a sales leader, because so get close to the reps so that you can steer the ship in the right direction. And it's also worth thinking about KPIs and, what KPIs you were using to measure the team in good times, and do they have to change in bad times is what you're focusing on, because it's sometimes you have to change things to be responsive to the current situation.
For sure. And so what are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard a couple of different opinions on this at the moment. Some companies saying, keep the KPIs the same because you want to try to push people to work as hard as they were and not sort of maybe let the idea of the recession allow them to work a little bit less hard. So, keep their quotas the same, keep the KPIs the same. And then of course I've heard other people saying, well, no, you can't, because if 50 to 75% of their audience has disappeared, how can they possibly maintain the same numbers? There has to be some shift. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is dependent on the industry and on the company. I think it is quite possible you have to rework some of the sales plans, the structure, as I talked about earlier, with whether you're basing it on top line or bottom line, and what the expectations are, because if you're selling beer to bars and the bars are all closed, you're just going to have to change what you're demanding out of your sales reps, and or they're not going to be very motivated to, because they're not going to make any money. I think in general, managers need to change their focus towards forward-looking KPIs, whereas historically, especially in good times, it's easy to manage looking at just lagging KPIs. A lagging KPI being like the current revenue that's coming in the door. That's the classic thing that you would manage a sales rep on, and revenue and profitability coming in the door today. But that's a lagging KPI, right? That's what your sales are today, depending on your sales cycle, could be from behaviors they've been performing over the past year, right? So I think shifting to more forward looking in tough times is a good way to keep a handle on who's engaged, who's making progress. And there's a tendency to look at just sales numbers right now because cash is king, and everyone's a little. It's easy to be strapped for cash in a difficult economic time. But as you evaluate your reps, I think you need to remember to keep an eye on who's building pipe, who's going to be generating in the revenue in the future, and you want to look to KPIs that are going to indicate that, and realign what KPIs you're focused on based on where your team's struggling. So if you're having trouble building pipeline, you need to start counting things like lead gen numbers, meetings with qualified deals, proposals being written. If it's more, I guess that's more middle of the funnel, like proposals, that sort of thing. If it's deals are struggling to close, you can look at negotiations skills. You can do some trainings around value selling. You can do trainings around and measure KPIs around like qualification. You can track discounts on deals. That's a great KPI to track right now. Figure out, why did we have to give away this discount to win it? How can we better protect our margins? And that, I guess that goes back to value selling and negotiation skills again. But ultimately, these are all secondary metrics to revenue for a sales team. And if you focus on anything too much and really gear people's sales plans around anything other than revenue or profitability, you can get skewy results in terms of It'll make your reps focus on the wrong things, focusing on things that aren't producing revenue. If you really count people heavily on proposals written, then you'll get a lot of proposals written, but your revenue won't necessarily go up. And so it's dangerous to put too much weight on anything other than revenue or profitability. But I think that's the general shift of in a bad economy. Shift your KPIs to think more about forward-looking KPIs and how you can measure them and which ones are really going to drive business value for your team.